Hey folks, Ariel and Burley and Zipper, who doesn't really like to cuddle. He likes to have his ears rubbed, but not really to be cuddled. Over here at Finesse, I don't know where Velcro is. Last I saw she was hiding under, oh, there she's over there now. It's getting toward dusk, so I think the chickens put themselves to bed. And snow's kind of cleared right now. There's Velcro. Here, kitty. Come here, you want to pose for the camera too? No, I don't care. I'm a cat. I don't care about cameras. I don't know if it's going to start snowing on me here. The forecast says 1 to 3 inches tonight. Currently it looks like it's only snowing on the mountaintops. So we'll see. It's been off and on here for a bunch of days. And yes, I am still splitting some wood by hand. The big log splitter is wonderful. There's nothing at all wrong with it. There's also just no reason at all to fire it up to do the tiny house firewood. And I do enjoy splitting by hand for the baby wood. So you still get wood splitting chats with me and the kittens when they want to cooperate. Yeah. Oh, you actually like to cuddle. Yes, you like to cuddle. Are you my baby kitten girl? Yeah. Oh, you like to be cuddly. Oh, yeah, and you want to go play too. Okay. These guys both turned out to be excellent Homestead mousers. As the snow has receded here, mice are finally starting to surface. Okay, Velcro, you're gonna have to get off the chopping block so I can swing the axe. Yeah, go play with Burley. It's a good idea. Earlier when I looked out the door, she and Burley were curled up right beside each other, and Zipper was not very far away, grooming himself, but not quite cuddling with the two of them. Anyway, they've lose my train of thought. Yeah, the mice are exposed now that the snowpack has melted so early, and that means that both of the kitties have had time to show off their prowess as hunters. We do not seem to have any problem, currently anyway, with mice in our feed room, chicken barn, shop, none of those things, which is wonderful. That's a job, that's what they're here for. Somebody asked me about how do I feed them now that they're catching mice. I still give them the same raw food as they want it. And I always have a bowl of some dry cat food available if I have to be away for the day or whatever. And if they catch and eat as many mice as they want, that's up to them. Generally, in my experience, well-fed cats will kill as many or more mice as a hungry one, because they just seem to like doing it. Which brings me to my topic of the video that I want to talk about, which is, life and death around the homestead here, and kind of my thoughts on that. And just to be clear, this is, like everything else I share, my thoughts, my experiences. It's not telling anybody else how to live, just exactly what I said, my thoughts and experiences. So, kittens kill mice. That involves death. Cats have to eat. We don't want the mice taking over things, so that's part of that life cycle. But really, I've been thinking for a while about how to try to, clearly express this. I obviously like animals. I like all of our animals around here. I enjoy watching them do their things. It's been amazing over the last year to have raised so many baby things and watch how a baby duck and a baby chicken and a baby cat just know how to be their own thing. Nobody had to tell a baby chicken that it didn't want to go splash in water, really ever, but especially when it's below zero. Yet the baby duck is just like, yay, this is so much fun. Nobody had to tell a duck that it doesn't feel like poking around through the grass looking for a mouse to pounce on. Yet a kitten just does that automatically. And so on. I know Joel Salatin I've read a bunch of his stuff, but I haven't actually read these, but I know he's got a book titled like The Marvelous Pigness of Pigs, and I felt in the last year like I've got to watch The Marvelous Catness of Cats, and Duckness of Ducks, and Chickenness of Chickens, and that's fascinating. So I like our animals, and we raise animals that we eat. And this is something that's taken me a while in life to come to terms to. But fascinatingly enough, what, are your kittens playing by themselves? I don't see any stick big enough to throw. Your really big stick's out there. It is. It's way out. I would say as I got to understand more about vegetable gardening and soil health and such, actually, interestingly, this might be a roundabout way to get there, but I have learned more and more about the fact that there's really not, in the real world, there's really not like vegetarian people, plants, or animals. Everything involves, I mean, you could be a vegetarian person, I know that's a thing, but there's no such thing as being a vegetarian creature on this planet that lives without death being some part of life. Plants digest, kill, attract, feed, farm, etc. microbes, which are living things in the soil, which is fascinating to learn about. And microbes are funny to watch. So if I eat a carrot, but the carrot farmed and killed microbes, there's still death involved. And what I've basically had to come to terms with over the years is that there is, that's a noisy truck, that there is death involved with every part of life. And I guess this is maybe the part that I haven't come up with a good way to express yet. I want, so when we bought this property, and right now at this time of year, it still looks kind of like a dead old hayfield. That's what it was. It was abandoned for a lot of years. Nobody loved it, nobody cared about it, and there wasn't much life here. There's some grasses that grew up and died. There's some mice that lived in them. Very few birds lived here because there's, a few trees along the creek, but none of the others. Now we've planted lots. Many of them are babies still. Hopefully one day they will be big. But what I want to do is be able to bring as much life to this little piece of ground as it can possibly support. And I think that's one of the things people are good at. And I find it fascinating that so many people, humans, seem to think that humans don't belong in this world. Like we're not a native species to planet Earth or something. Whether you think God made people and put them here, in which case they belong, or whether you think they evolved here, in which case I don't know why they wouldn't belong just as much as an earthworm or a bluebird or a dog or a grizzly bear. It seems to me that people belong here, and just like I don't look at like the soil in my garden and say, oh well, it was like this, but an earthworm disrupted it, and so we should get rid of all earthworms. Earthworms do disrupt the soil. They make holes in it that lets in more water and air and loosens the soil. They poop in it, that changes it, it makes it better. I could get into a very, very long talk about some of that stuff, but I think humans can do the same. And this is not to disregard the fact that lots of humans spend a lot of their lives either intentionally or thoughtlessly going around and destroying things, which is unfortunate because I think humans are very capable of going around making things better. And that's what I want to spend my life doing. And I don't believe I can change the whole planet, but I think maybe I can make a little difference on this chunk of ground here. If I inspire somebody else to do the same on their own little chunk somewhere else, so much the better. So I can plant trees. They might not look like anything right now. They probably don't. But one day they will. And then there will be more birds, and there will be more bugs, and there will be more bees, and there will be cleaner air, and there'll be more water in the soil because that tree's there. And I'm the one that put it there and watered it enough to get it to live through its first couple of years of drought and get established instead of just curl up and die again. This is fascinating. I love what you find sometimes inside of wood when you split it open. Take a look at this if the camera can see it. That's pine needles sticking out there that were lodged well into the heart of this log. This is the very heart that I've split open. And you can see they'd fallen down in there in an injury or crack or something and got sealed up with all that sap, is like the tree's blood healing up a wound and making a scab there. Anyway, that's fascinating. There's pine needles sticking out of the inside of a tree when I split that log. And so if there's death as part of all life, no dog is going to live without things dying, no earthworm's going to, no plant is going to. It's out there. Etc. Then I want as many of those lives to be as good as possible. My kittens distract me. Well, all my animals distract me. And I've really come to understand how all of it's a cycle. We all live, we do things to, whether we're an earthworm that improves the soil, or we're a tree that fertilizes it, or we're a chicken that keeps the bugs in check and poops fertilizer, or we're a kitten that keeps the rodent population from getting out of control and overrunning and destroying everything with rodents can do. And in places in the prairie parts of Wyoming, small rodents like chislers, properly called Uinta ground squirrels, will have these, I think prairie dogs do the same thing, these massive cycles where they get tons of them, and there's just too many, there's not enough food, they get sick, and there's a massive die-off, and there's very few for a couple years. It builds up to a massive explosion again, and so on. That's just part of all of it, and of course with people too. I recently experienced this once again in life with my baby brother passing away. So my goal here is to kind of, make something that, just like the soil will probably be better for that earthworm's life after the earthworm dies and rots back into yet more soil. That's kind of what I want to do. I'm going to live here till whenever I die, or somewhere. I think it'll be here for a long time, but you never know. And then at some point I will die. And my will literally says that my first choice is to put me in a compost pile. Turn the body, the cells that make up my body currently, back into useful soil. It also says there's some other things you can do if that'll get you in legal trouble and thrown in prison. But that would literally be my first choice. And my wheelbarrow is just about full. And so as I've had to come to terms with that, that everything is going to live and die, and I feed the plants and the trees, and one day I'm going to die, and those remains of my body ought to feed the tree roots. While the tree goes on to live a long time, and eventually it'll die in many years because a pine beetle lived and killed it. And then that same tree will go on to being lumber, firewood, sawdust, bark that rots back into the ground and fertilizes yet another tree. It's just an endless cycle. So if that's true, and there's an endless cycle, then what I want to do and feel like is kind of my responsibility is to do as much good in my part of that cycle as possible. whether I'm going to eat a vegetarian product that's grown in a field, which is going to generally, the way most of it's grown, involve tilling and disking and spraying and all those things, which is going to directly or indirectly kill billions of things in the soil, birds nesting on the ground, deer, all the things that won't have any habitat because to live in at all because of the massive monoculture fields that tend to provide those things. I've just come to the conclusion that there's death with all of it, and that's death that is in some ways to me pointless because it's only destructive for the most part. It's not providing any benefit. This tree lived, as far as I know, a good tree life. It's got enough rings. This thing was born sometime before me. It's probably been dead for 20 years ago already, at least 15, and now it's going to heat and warm me, and then the ashes are going to go back in the soil, and it's just going to go on with that cycle. So I think that's, from my perspective, as far as I can see, that's a good tree life. It would have lived longer had a pine beetle not killed it. So I want to, if my life is going to have to involve death, I want it to be good ones. And so even as hard as it is, like what I talked about in the duck update video, it's hard to raise creatures from a baby and then realize, like, this isn't fair. I cannot keep 4 male ducks around here and 1 female. Either the males are going to kill the female, which isn't fair to her, and then there's no more baby ducks and no eggs and no more of that, or the males are going to kill each other. And they're, in the meantime, all stressed because I've got something out of balance here. I've got way too many boys in the area and not enough girls. I have to do something about this. So we butchered 3 of our ducks. Ducks are kind of cute. Ducks kind of have personalities. Is that a little harder than knowing that an earthworm dies in the garden soil? Fortunately, I don't have too many earthworms that I end up directly killing because I don't till any of the soil of their beds. But yeah, it is. But does that mean that duck life is actually any more important than the earthworm's life? I don't know. I suspect probably not. And like one other homesteader I know said, when people ask her how she can raise animals that they also eat, she said, well, I don't feel so bad for them. How about carrots? Which, again, the more I learned about soil health and plant stuff and gardening is really what brought me to this point in life. Plants seem to have not feelings and emotions that I recognize as easily as I do in other humans or a dog or a species like that, but plants react almost instantly to touch, to sounds, to things going on in their nearby plants. They know their family members. They will actively excrete chemical compounds to help sibling plants and try to poison or restrict non-related plants. So, like she said, what I feel bad for is that carrot when I pull its brother out of the ground right beside it, and it's just stuck there. It can't even move. It can't do anything about it. So, rather than outsourcing the part of death that's involved in my life, I feel like, if at all possible, and I realize this isn't possible for every single person, I'm not saying, oh, you're a bad person if you don't have a setup at the moment where you can do this. I think you can buy good food from people who do care for it like this, but I want to be involved in knowing the death and life of those things. I want to know how they were cared for. I want to know that my ducks or my chickens, it's going to snow some more, ran around in open air, fresh air, sunshine, ate bugs, did normal chicken and duck things, and then had a quick and peaceful end. I know that no life that ends on this property is it being ended thoughtlessly and thanklessly, and everything had as good a life as possible. And while yes, it would be easier for me to just go buy meat at a grocery store or even buy non-meat products at a grocery store, I've been living in rural areas my whole life. I've been around enough agriculture, from animal agriculture to farming agriculture to produce farming, to know that there's death involved in all of those. And in some of the large commercial operations, be it plant or animal, there's no good lives or good deaths. And here I want everything to have a good life and a good death. And when I die, I'd like to go back into the soil on this property, and those cells become grass and earthworms and trees and flowers and carrots and whatever here again. That's really would be my first choice. So I guess that's how I think about it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's something I feel like is hard to express, but that's why I choose to live in such a way where we do produce the things we eat here, and I'm grateful for the ability to do that. And while I share my experiences and thoughts, and mostly hope to hi little one, mostly hope to encourage other people to have, to think through those things for themselves as well. I suppose I do think that if more people around the planet did that the world would probably be a better place, with more good lives and more good deaths for people and animals. And since we all got this terminal condition called life, whether you're a kitten or a person or a mouse or whatever, I think that's the best we can do, is to make them good ones while we're around. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I don't always express some of those thoughts well, but that's kind of been my journey from growing up. And even though my parents butchered some of their own animals, I did not want to be involved in it. I did not want to eat any of them. Here, come here. I know. So I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. That's why we make these choices, and they're not always easy, but I think they're the best choices I can make. And if you disagreed, I hope you make the best choices that you think you can make. And yeah, I guess that's all for this video. You guys have a good day.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Come back next time for more adventures.
Thanks for watching.